This week, BMW announced a new 40-year anniversary edition of the 1250GS to celebrate the introduction of the GS line of bikes in the form of the original R80 back in 1980. In fact, the entire GS lineup has had the same treatment with a special finish influenced by the R1250GS of the late 80s and a whole bunch of new standard equipment and optional extras. So in today's video, we'll look over the specs for 2021 for all of the GS bikes, including the 1250, 850 and 750, as well as have a look at some of those new finishes for the next model year. But before we get started, if you're new here and you want to keep up to date with all the new bike releases that come thick and fast at this time of year, then please do remember to hit subscribe. I'll be covering as many of them as humanly possible. So the fundamentals of the 1250GS and the 1250GS adventures stay the same for 2021 with the same shift cam 1250 boxer twin, capable of 136 horsepower peak at 7,750 RPM. The chassis, equipment and dimensions are pretty much the same too, but there's some new standard equipment as well as a whole host of new optional accessories. Dynamic traction control, or DTC, now comes as standard, which is BMW's name for their lean sensitive traction control. Integral ABS Pro is standard too, which is also lean sensitive and operates both the front and rear brakes from the front brake lever, whilst the rear brake pedal operates just the rear. BMW claim a shorter stopping distance is possible with this system, and personally I've tried something similar on the Goldwing, which I borrowed a few months back, and I found it totally unobtrusive to the riding experience. Integral ABS Pro is optimized for on and off-road use depending on the riding mode, and BMW claim that completely disabling ABS at the front wheel is no longer necessary because of advancements in their system. But they also say that future homologation rules won't permit completely disabling ABS, so their hand might have been forced. Either way, the rear can still be switched off for sliding around in the dirt by using the Enduro Pro or Dynamic Pro riding modes. Lastly, there's a new Eco riding mode, and although that's pretty common on cars, it might be the first time I've seen such a thing on a motorcycle. It delivers a softer throttle response, and as such will use the benefits of the shift cam variable valve timing and valveless system in order to deliver the best fuel economy possible. The rider is also encouraged to ride efficiently with a new Eco display on the TFT dash. On top of these neat additions to the standard tech of the GS, there are plenty of optional extras available for 2021. A Pro riding mode opens up Enduro Pro and Dynamic Pro, in which a range of settings can be customized to the rider's taste. But this takes the total number of riding modes up to 7, and as such BMW have made it possible to assign a smaller selection of them to the mode button on the right-hand switchgear in order to toggle between your favorites more efficiently. The Pro riding mode also includes dynamic engine brake control, which has a similar effect to a slipper clutch in that it helps to avoid rear wheel lockup when downshifting aggressively, but does so by quickly opening the throttle valves to equalize the wheel speeds. Dynamic engine brake control is, however, reduced in Enduro mode and completely disabled in Enduro Pro so that riders can use the clutch in order to control rear wheel slip themselves. Hill Start Control Pro is also available and now has enhanced abilities in the Enduro modes. Standard HSC holds the brakes until it detects the bike moving off, in order to make hill starts easier, especially when laden with luggage and a passenger. The Pro version adds gradient detection to vary the amount of brake pressure accordingly, as well as an automatic mode which activates HSC when a gradient of plus or minus 3% is detected. In Enduro mode, this gradient is increased to 5% uphill and fully disabled on descents. On top of these rider aids, there are a number of lighting accessories to improve visibility and therefore safety, starting with an adaptive headlight that uses lean angle data to swivel the low beam into a turn. It also compensates for heavy loads or aggressive riding to adjust the height of the beam in order to maintain a constant headlight range. Much like a car, there's an option for a welcome light which illuminates the headlight and tail light when the ignition is switched on and fades after a short while. There's also a cruising light option which permanently lights the front indicators in a dim state, much like you see on Hondas like the Africa Twin. Integrated rear indicators are also an accessory for 2021, which incorporate a brake and tail light into the indicators to make the bike more visible from the rear. In terms of comfort, there are heated seats for both the rider and passenger, and a new bar riser option with an increase of 30mm for improved ergonomics when standing, or for particularly tall riders, especially when paired with one of the optional high saddles. As for finishes, the 1250GS is now available in light white solid as the most affordable option, with the GS Adventure in ice grey solid. Most of the components such as the cross-spoked wheels, brake calipers, fork tubes, rear frame and drivetrain are finished in black, with a silver mainframe and handlebars. The red and black saddle adds a finishing touch of colour to match the 1250GS graphics. The GS and GS Adventure are both available in an almost completely blacked out version, which BMW call triple black because it uses metallic, matte and dark grey finishes. Apparently it emphasises the bike's masculine nature, so go for this one if you're feeling particularly manly. There's also a rally style paint job for both models, which uses the famous white, red and blue BMW colour scheme, and this has to be one of the most popular choices. Almost all of the bike's components are finished in black, including the rims, so gone are those gold rims, which in my opinion work so well with this paint scheme. And that might be because they've reserved them for the 40th anniversary edition with a yellow and black finish that harks back to that R100GS that we saw at the beginning of this video. There are splashes of yellow all over the bike with the graphics and logos, a yellow saddle, cylinder head covers, handguards, handlebars and even the windscreen. All in all, it looks like a solid upgrade to an already super popular bike, with lean-sensitive ABS and traction control as standard, probably the most meaningful changes. The large capacity GS has long been the best-selling bike on the market in the UK, but recent data shows the super affordable Royal Enfield Interceptor 650 taking the lead this year. So do you think these updates are enough to put the GS back on top next year? Let me know in the comments below. So let's take a look at the middleweight bikes too, which have had some pretty nice updates. The F750GS will be available in 3 colour schemes for 2021, starting with the light white, which includes matte black rims, black handlebars and a red and black seat. The San Marino blue option pops a little more, with a tinted windscreen, granite grey metallic rims, silver bars, a black and grey seat and a galvanised radiator cowl. Lastly, there's the 40 years GS edition with the logos on the side panels, yellow handguards, black and yellow seat with the logo, matte black rims, silver bars and also the galvanised radiator cowl. As for technical improvements, both the 750 and 850GSs now get LED indicators as standard and a USB port for charging up near the bars. And much like the 1250, there's a substantial update to the safety tech with ABS Pro and dynamic traction control both fitted as standard to all of these bikes as well. This again means that ABS and traction control will both be lean sensitive as standard, which ought to provide better safety in tricky conditions through corners. Elsewhere, the F750GS specs remain as standard with a Euro 5 compliant 77 horsepower parallel twin engine and more basic suspension and brakes than the bigger models. But if you're willing to spec it up with a few optional extras, it can inherit some nice tech like the TFT dash, keyless ignition, quick shifter and the emergency SOS button. I've always had a soft spot for the smallest GSs after I spent a week riding one around some ridiculously good roads in the Canary Islands, so this most recent version looks pretty sweet to me. It's way less intimidating than some of the taller adventure bikes with a fairly accessible seat height of 815mm, so it presents a good option if you want something that looks a bit rugged but you're also short in the leg. Moving up a step to the F850GS, we also get 3 colour schemes for the 2021 model year, including racing red with black components like the fork tubes, rims and a black and grey seat. There's also a rally style version predominantly painted in racing blue with a red and black seat and those all important gold rims for a pop of rally bling. The 40 years GS edition of this bike gets the logos, yellow and black paint, yellow handguards, yellow and black seat and the gold rims. And on top of the additions already mentioned of LED indicators, USB charger, ABS Pro and dynamic traction control, the 850GS also gets the TFT dash with phone connectivity as standard, as well as an adjustable screen. It's been a few years since I last rode the F850GS, but I did borrow the road-focused F900R from BMW earlier this year, which inherits the engine of the 850, and it worked really nicely. In fact, I reckon the torquey twin nature with its revised 270 crank would feel more appropriate in the middleweight GS, so I must get round to checking one out firsthand. The adventure version of the 850GS also gets 3 new colour schemes, including ice grey with black rims and a grey and black seat. There's the 40th anniversary edition, of course, with the yellow and black finish, but personally my favourite is the rally style with Kalamata matte paint, bright orange logos, gold forks, gold rims and an all black seat. It's worth noting though that this version takes the already tall 875mm seat height up to a proper lofty 890mm, which will be far out of many people's comfort zone. Other seat options and a lowering kit might help with that though. The 850GS Adventure also gets all of the standard equipment listed above, including the TFT dash with connectivity. Across the range there are some new optional accessories too, with a lot of the tech that was previously the reserve of the 1250 now trickling down. Pro riding modes open up a new dynamic throttle response for a more sporty ride, as well as dynamic engine brake control, dynamic brake control, and the same ability to pre-select up to 4 riding modes to a dedicated button on the right switchgear. The same ABS rules also apply to the 850s, with Enduro Pro the only mode in which rear ABS can be fully disabled. So that's a whole bunch of updates to the GS lineup for the next model year, with a bunch of new finishes and some neat improvements in spec and tech as well. I think my pick would be the 850GS Adventure in that Kalamata matte finish, although I might need a lift to get up onto it. Let me know which you'd pick in the comments below. And if you're new here and you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe and I'll catch you next time.